Hello, my Bill 1000 Nation. How's everyone doing today? Hopefully everyone's having a great day. If not, I hope it gets better from here. We are back with another Coffeehouse Crime. This one is titled The Chilling Case of Birna. Yep, that's what it's called. Let's go ahead and get into today's story. Go ahead, turn them lights down low, put on something comfy cup of someone special. Let's get chilled. To the bone.
Surveillance cameras are very much a double-edged sword. In almost every modernised town and city, they are everywhere.
They're handy though.
It uneases the nerves to know that in public, every move you make is being monitored.
That is
everywhere
creepy.
You go.
It is creepy. I'm gonna be the first to admit I don't like thinking that someone's watching me 24 hours a day, but I also like the fact that if I'm walking down the street and someone next to me gets shot in the face and they're looking at me, they can show on camera it ain't me. So I mean,
but it can also be comforting to know that should you ever go missing, surveillance cameras may be the single thing that helps find you or explains why. My name's Adrian and welcome back to Coffeehouse Crime. Today we're looking at the case of Birna Brjansdottir, who in the early hours of a cold January morning vanished, and surveillance cameras that would help solve her disappearance. But before we get into our case today, I wanted to take a small moment to thank those of you that have subscribed to Coffeehouse Crime. When I started my channel just over a few weeks ago, I had no idea that I would connect to over 1,000 of you in such a short period of time. I feel so lucky to share my stories with so many of you already, so thank you. I won't hammer on, but I thought this milestone deserved a new shirt and an updated coffee house. Okay, with that out of the way, I have an interesting story to share with you today, so sit back and grab a coffee. This is the case of Birna Brjansdottir.
Brjansdottir? I would have never. I need Rosetta
Deep in the
Stone,
North
bruh.
Atlantic Ocean lies a sleepy and often forgotten island called Iceland. Iceland as a country has an entire population of only 357,000 inhabitants.
Really?
Well characterised for its snow, waterfalls, northern lights, and more modernly for its blue lagoon, Iceland is also a country with a population
so
focused
fucking
on
gorgeous.
simplicity, honesty, and togetherness. Iceland's capital, Reykjavik, is home to roughly 1/3 of the country's population. And one of those inhabitants, her name was Birna Brjansdottir. Birna was a 20-year-old woman, and to the usual passerby, she was just a sales assistant to one of the city's several fashion shops. In 2017, Birna was living with her father in the suburb of Brjaholt in Reykjavik. Although her mother and father had split up, she was still on good terms with both of them and talked to both of them on a daily basis.
That's good.
She loved music, dancing, and having fun. She was bright, responsible, and nurturing, and described by her friends as a kind, fun-loving redhead with a great sense of humour. Other than enjoying a good time with her friends, she also loved music, and with that she would often frequent the city's bars and nightclubs every Friday evening. And on the evening of Friday the 13th of January 2017, it was the same as all other Fridays. Birna, she had a busy day at work, full of its stresses, and she was ready to let loose at a local bar with friends. They hit a local bar after work and shared a few games of cards as they drank. And as the evening progressed, so did their spirits. They soon after headed to Hura, a local nightclub in the centre of the city. Hura is one of the city's most vibrant venues, offering premier live music and a great night out. Both local and famous bands frequently perform here to the city's nighttime punters. And shortly after they got there, lively and carefree, Birna was one of the first people to get up on the stage and start dancing away. And their time in Hura, with all the dancing and partying and drinking, quickly turned the hours over. By the time the clock had struck 2 AM, while Birna was still enjoying...
I can't do those fruity drinks, bruh. Nice bourbon, a good scotch. Just throw a couple fingers in there and just sipping.
her evening, her friends were growing tired. They told her they wanted to leave, but Birna, she decided that she would stay at the nightclub. The club hammered on, and so did Birna. Right through to the end, in fact. At 5 AM, the club's lights switched on. It was closing time, and with the end to the night, Birna decided it was time to go back home to her father's house to catch some sleep. Shortly after leaving the club, she bought a falafel pitta from a local takeaway, before making her way through to Laugvig, a brightly lit street with glowing storefronts and illuminating lampposts. She was walking alone, and this was not unusual in Reykjavik. Even for a young woman, with the country's crime rate extremely low, the place is considered safe for all. It was -9 degrees Celsius that early morning though.
Yeah, she a little tipsy. She just ran that poor motherfucker. It's like, man, you do that here, the motherfucker will be like, "Yeah, don't fucking touch me."
With wind chill giving the air a particularly strong bite. As she walked home, Birna was seen on CCTV wearing the outfit that she'd had on since finishing her shift the evening before. Black Doc Marten boots, black jeans, a grey jumper and a black hoodie. Her hair hung loose and a pair of white earbuds dangled around her neck. And following her enjoyable night, Birna was drunk. Surveillance cameras captured her accidentally bumping into strangers on the pavement and dropping coins outside a shop. She ambled past the yellow and red awning of the Lebowski bar and a coffee shop which backed onto a street corner where a narrow lane then leads down to the sea. But after appearing on the footage of this camera, nestled on Laugvig Street at 5:25 AM, Birna Brjansdottir, she vanished. This would actually be the last time she was ever seen alive again.
Damn.
Birna never showed up for work the next morning. She was actually supposed to be working with one of her long-term best friends, Maria. The two had met in primary school and had also been working at the same shop for quite some time. It was unlike Birna to miss a day at work, or at least if she ever did, she would call in advance to let everyone know. Maria tried to call Birna's mobile phone, but it went straight through to voicemail. It was also unlike Birna to have her phone switched off. This raised Maria's suspicion, so she contacted one of Birna's friends who'd went out with her the night before. She too hadn't seen her since 2 AM.
Damn.
The two contacted
not
Birna's
good.
mother, Silla, and Silla, she too hadn't heard from her daughter. She started to grow concerned pretty quickly, and by the afternoon she'd contacted the police to file a missing persons report. Since it was a very strange and unusual case, they were very quick to pick up on Birna's case.
Oh, thank God for
And
that.
in the first 24 hours, under their initial investigation, is when they found the surveillance footage of Birna roaming the streets that early Saturday morning. And through tracking her mobile phone's GPS, police then managed to find that she'd made it to a location near a mobile tower in Hafnarfjörður, an industrial area in a port town 6 miles south of Reykjavik. But other than this initial boost of data, nothing else stood out to police officers. Birna, she was still missing, and police were none the wiser to figuring out where she'd gone. Silla was starting to grow very concerned, so she reached out to Facebook. And the news of Birna's disappearance there spread like wildfire across the country. By the
Thank
time
God
3
for
days had
Facebook,
passed,
bruh.
huge amounts of attention was focused on Birna. Police were so fired up about the case that they assigned their top officer to investigate. His name was Grimmer Grimson. Grimmer was a private person, but he was by no means unnoticed. In his 30 years in the police force as a detective, he'd almost seen it all. This included investigations into petty crimes, right through to enduring multiple avalanches while posted in the northern wetfjords. Only in November 2016 had he returned to Reykjavik's police force, missing the faster pace of life. Scrutinising the surveillance footage of Birna shortly after she left the bar, Grimson and his colleagues noticed a small red car travelling in the opposite direction to Birna. It drove past the Lebowski bar less than 30 seconds after she'd appeared on camera there. It was insignificant, but it stood out to officers. The license plate on the car, however, was ineligible, and when police checked the National Vehicle Database, they found more than 100 cars of the same make, model, and colour. In the early morning hours of January the 16th, two brothers who were part of the search team to find Birna were down at the docks of Hafnarfjörður. This was the place that Birna's mobile phone was last located. They'd been searching for quite some time, and they hadn't found anything of interest. They decided to check the harbour one last time, so they decided to walk towards it, going past an open patch of land next to Atlansolia supply station. That is when they came across a pair of boots, and upon closer inspection, they were Doc Martens. They believed it belonged to Birna,
Damn.
and police would later confirm this too. This was the first real piece of evidence to link Birna to this harbour, and the prognosis didn't look too promising for her either. Back in the city, detectives were also making their own progress too. They'd been analysing additional CCTV footage, and when they checked the harbour, that's when they saw the red Kia again on Saturday morning at 6 AM. The car parked along a 65-metre trawler called the Polar Nanok. It was a ship owned by Greenland. The footage isn't publicly available, but what it shows is a man leaving the red Kia from the passenger's side and slowly, drunkenly walking back towards the ship. The car then drives off. This time though, the license plate was legible. After a quick investigation, Grimson was able to locate the car back to a rental vehicle company. The car had been rented out by a crewmate on the Polar Nanok, and that guy's name was Thomas Moller Olsen. Thomas Moller Olsen was a fisherman from Greenland. He was visiting the island as part of work, and he'd arrived via the Polar Nanok. And honestly, that's all there really is to him. He's a fisherman, and he did have a small criminal record for buying and selling hashish, but otherwise he's a pretty boring guy. At around lunchtime on Saturday, Thomas had returned his hired red Kia to the rental company, and since Grimson's discovery, it had been hired out again to another family. Police located and impounded the car, but by the time they got there, it was pretty obvious that the car had been recently cleaned. The new owners of the rented vehicle had complained about the smell in the back seat, and upon closer inspection, police would also find traces of blood on the back seat. They would take a sample of that along with Birna's DNA and send both to a laboratory for forensic analysis.
Damn.
Police also confirmed that there was damage to the underside of the car, suggesting it was probably driven off-road on trails where small compact cars shouldn't be driven. There was also over 300 kilometers racked up on the pedometer while in Thomas's hands, something that couldn't be explained. With the ever-growing suspicion luring its head towards Thomas Olsen, the hunt for him was now on. It wasn't difficult to locate him though. He was on a boat, it's just that boat had already left, and it was over 100 miles away in Greenland's waters. This was a bit of a challenge for Iceland's police. Thomas, he was a Greenland citizen, on a boat owned by Greenland, which was now in the territorial waters of Greenland. They couldn't really do much to stop him, and had a lot of reliance on the neighbouring country to help. But on the boat, gossip started to spread about the red Kia. And apparently Thomas, when he heard the news, he went pale. He was so panicked in fact that he needed to be sedated. Yeah, you can't really run away from this one, mate. This is where we meet another hero to the story though. The captain of the Polar Nanok, he'd heard the news too about the red Kia, and he also understood the diplomatic challenges that Iceland's police would face. So what did he do? He told the crew that the boat had a motor problem, and so he turned the boat around and started sailing back the other way towards Iceland's harbour. He also turned the Wi-Fi off so no one on the ship could gather news or gossip about the case. What a guy.
Yeah.
As soon as the Polar Nanok entered Icelandic
I love that. That motherfucker's amazing. Fool.
waters, 6 of Iceland's Viking squad, the country's top police officers, rappelled onto the Polar Nanok via helicopter and arrested Thomas. They also arrested his drunken friend Nikolai, who had accompanied him in the red Kia that Friday night. By the time the two were in custody, forensic analysis results on the blood found in the back of the car had returned. And unfortunately, to add to the ever-unfolding evidence, it was confirmed to belong to Birna. Both Thomas and Nikolai denied causing any harm to Birna. According to their statements, they'd both gone for a night out in the town on Friday. Nikolai took a taxi from the harbour to Reykjavik and went for a drink in the English pub just off Laugvögr. He then paid 2,500 krona for a spin of the lucky wheel and won the grand prize of 8 beers. By the time Thomas had driven the rental car to the capital and joined Nikolai, Nikolai was already very drunk. They later moved to another bar before going for a drive. And at roughly 5 AM during that time of that drive is when Birna and another woman, they'd both entered the car. Nikolai though, he was so drunk that he didn't remember any other details after that. He passed out on the way to the harbour. Thomas told police that after dropping Nikolai off at the Polar Nanok, he then drove the car to the end of the harbour and got into the back seats with both women. He apparently then started making out with Birna before dropping them both off at a local roundabout. And apparently that was it. But you can probably tell by now that that's not actually what happened. We know this because police caught Thomas on surveillance footage leaving the harbour at around 7 AM, and then again in a shop buying cleaning products. Other evidence was also weighing against Thomas too. The doctor who examined him had noted scratches on his chest, and officers searching his cabin in the Polar Nanok would also find 23 kilograms of hashish, with a street value of roughly £1.4 million. And more notably, police also found Birna's driver's license. It was located in the ship's rubbish tip. Pieces of evidence were finally starting to come together around Thomas and Birna. Around 11:45 AM on the 22nd of January, just 9 days after Birna disappeared, search efforts were still going strong for her.
I hope they find enough evidence to get his ass.
Active that day. And that's when
I really, really hope they get enough evidence to just pin his ass so he's in there just getting it, just the rest of his fucking life.
a Coast Guard helicopter flying low over the coastline by Selsvogsviti Lighthouse spotted something near the water's edge. There was no typical beach there, only cliffs and beams of black stones. In contrast to the rock was a large pale object. There they would find a body. And, to everyone's biggest fears, that body would belong to Birna. Autopsy reports found that she had been struck in the face and strangled, near to the point of death. There were no signs of sexual assault, only of grievous bodily harm, but the hardest revelation was that she had not died in the car, but from drowning, most likely in the sea's freezing temperatures. Iceland grieved for Birna. Back in Reykjavik, thousands of people walked together down the streets, leaving candles and flowers in the areas Birna was last seen on camera. Her funeral was held at the biggest church in the country and had over 2,000 attendees, including both of Iceland's president and prime minister. Her discovery and funeral seemed to do no less than ignite and add further pressure to Thomas's trial. With evidence ever unfolding both to him and to the public's eyes, it was very clear that he was responsible for Birna's murder.
Oh yeah.
Investigations also concluded that Nikolai had no part to this crime. Apart from being horrendously drunk that morning, he was dropped off at the harbour before the attack started. He was then later discharged from police 2 days after her funeral. So on March the 30th, 2017, Thomas was charged with Birna's murder and also for drug possession. When his trial began in August, the prosecution's case was even stronger. Thomas's DNA was found on the laces of one of Birna's boots, and Norwegian forensic scientists had identified his fingerprint on her driver's license. He confessed to drug possession, but not to murder. And to everyone's surprise, while he was being trialed, he spoke to the court in a low voice with no emotion, spinning a completely new story to the judge and jury. Instead of 2 girls in the car, it was now only one, Birna, who he had said suddenly climbed into the Kia Rio as he drove along Laugvega. Thomas said he had stopped the car and got out to have a pee, at which point Nikolai drove off with Birna, returning some time later without her. To the astonishment of everyone in the court, Thomas was now, at this late stage in the process, trying to pin the murder on his fellow crewmate. This didn't work, however, because in November 2018, Thomas was found guilty of Birna's murder and also of drug smuggling. He was sentenced to 19 years in prison, in addition to the repayment of 29 million kroner in costs and compensation.
Just 19 years?
I'm really starting to see a pattern here in my videos, you know.
Just 19 fucking years? So he's only gonna get 19 years of getting it in the ass?
First New Zealand, and then the United Kingdom, and then Japan, and now Iceland. Why are these murderers getting away with such short sentences? In America, most of these cases, there'd be life sentences without the possibility of parole. Birna was an outgoing, courageous, fun-loving free spirit. She lived life to the full. And for her entire life to be taken away for just 19 years of this scumbag, it doesn't seem right.
It's not.
Birna's killer, to this date, still hasn't revealed a motive. In fact, he still pleads not guilty. And to the residents of Iceland and their way of life, it's unfathomable to understand anyway. Despite this case, I've never visited Iceland, but it's definitely on my list. The country's way of life and natural beauty sounds too good to miss. With its waterfalls, lava fields, and spectacular night skies, I can see why its native population are amongst one of the happiest out there. Birna lived and loved every second of her life, and I think that's quite a resounding ambition that Iceland's folk have. Thank you so much for watching another video of mine today. I hope you enjoyed the case.
I really did. It was really sad, and it really pisses me off that he only got like 19 years. The whole family's destroyed. All of her friends destroyed. Therapy, her life gone, snuffed out. He needs more. Period. I'm sorry. Bring him over here. We'll judge him. I don't give a fuck. All right, I really enjoyed today's video. If y'all enjoyed today's video as much as I did, please go down there, hit that thumbs up. While you're down there, go on over, hit that subscribe button, become part of the Bill 5000 Nation. We do some crazy shit here, bruh. If you want to know when that crazy shit happens, go over, ding that bell. It don't work, but maybe if you squint really hard and spin your around in circles and then try to do it, and if you luckily land on it and do turn on all notifications and ding the bell and shit, it might actually work. Go ahead, give it a try. And buried deep down in the description is the link for my store. Go ahead, check it out. We got some new merch and some stuff for the holidays. That way you can spread the cheer of Bill 5000 to your whole family. As always, be good to one another. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Yeah, he needs more than 19 years of getting it in the ass. I'm sorry, he does. Like, that's not... If I was that poor child's parents... No. No.